Good morning. Here we are again for another Overflow podcast. Sitting next to me, Pastor Jeff Waterman.
Well, good morning, Andy. How are you today?
Morning. I'm great today. Yes, my name is Andy Ferguson. It's good to be here. Episode 35, I believe it is. Yes, it is 35.
Well, we're knocking them down, aren't we?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Well, I guess we're just diving right in. We didn't have any questions this particular week, so what we're going to be doing is getting right into our Promise Alters Life, which was the title of this past Sunday's sermon, which actually was the beginning of our new sermon series.
Yeah, promise or problem,
Yep.
or problem or promise, depending. And I think we do a lot of that. Are we looking at the problem that we're facing? And we face a lot of problems in life, but God has promises that we can hold on to. And what is it that we focus on, the problem or the promise? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, last week we actually we called out some people that are influential members of our teams and how they help out with the Sunday services. I want to call out Melissa White on this particular one. Because,
okay.
Man, that sermon image, the sermon series image looked great.
Oh, good. Good job, Melissa.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Problem or promise, it's up there. And that's so if you're watching the live stream of Sunday, you're going to see that as our image for this current sermon series, and it was a really good one. I loved it. Yeah,
good.
Way to go. So it was kind of a fun way to intro into the service this past Sunday. You had some questions for our congregation.
Yeah, kind of a moving survey, right? Just to see where people are at.
Yeah, and the whole Sunday really was about moving and how we move, how God moves us, and we'll get into all of that. But yes, for the congregants, though, who were a part of those questions, so we did our turn and greet. We had some intro music for worship and coming together, and then you came up to begin your sermon, and you asked these questions like, hey, if you're taking a trip, who among you, and you said, okay, go to this side if you're this realm, or go to this side if you're this sphere. It was, if you're the person who likes to get there fast and then take it slow during a vacation, go over here. Or if
shout out to the Beach Boys.
right.
That's a lyric out of their song.
Yeah. Or if you're the person who the journey and the transition is a part of the vacation itself, right? So you split up the people. And like I was saying, so if you're a part of those people in the congregation that day, you don't really know what the answer was or what the general flow was. I've got it for you. I watched it. And so most of our congregants are a get there fast and then take it slow people.
Where are you?
I'm that person too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like my life, when we go on vacation, it's like, I want to get on the plane. I want to get there, get unpacked, and then I can go,
Yeah.
But I do know some people that, hey, let's take 3 or 4 days to get there. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? No, I got to get there fast. Then I'll take it slow.
Yeah. I got to be honest. Like, I kind of wish I was the other person.
Me too.
It just makes sense that that's the way to enjoy a life more.
I know. I agree. Like all these people go, oh, there's this cool little restaurant over here and it's in these backwoods. And I'm like, well, but that's a half hour that way and a half hour. It's an hour out of our way for food. No, let's go. Let's go through the drive-through. And they're like, yeah. So I agree with you.
I think Jesus was the journey type of a person. I know so because he had 3 years for ministry. He walked everywhere. He wasn't running, sprinting, trying to get wherever it was. For me, even in a day itself, like I can feel stressed and the logistics and the pragmatics of what has to happen within a day. Then finally it's like 10 o'clock at night or something. Everybody's asleep. I go, oh, now I can start to enjoy my day.
Right.
Like,
you got there fast. Yeah. Now you're going to take it slow.
Right. And I'm telling you, that's not the way to do it, guys.
I think there needs to be a blend, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yes. So we are allowed to get there fast and then take it slow. Okay.
Yeah. So the other question was if the people within our congregation are early adopters, right? If they get into the whatever it is right away, or if we have a lot of late arrivers, they like to see if it works first.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
what
was it?
Yes. So most of our people, including myself, are late arrivers. We like to see that it works first.
All right. Yeah. See, I'm an early adopter.
Yeah.
I'm a jump all in. Let's go.
Right. Good for you.
Well,
and
I don't
we need
know
those people.
So I want to get there fast. I want to get there early.
Yeah. Right. And you don't need to see that it's going to work out. You're just going to get there.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I'll actually appropriate this or connect this with my spiritual walk, with my coming to Christianity kind of journey. When it was time, when I had felt within myself, this was after a born again experience that I had, and we can talk about that sometime in the future or not. But when that had happened and I had felt and realized and known the call about getting baptized as like maybe that next step kind of a deal, I even at that point, I knew and I thought to myself, if this is going to be something that I'm going to say, I am dying to this life and I'm going to live as a new creation, and the rest of my life is going to be in Christianity and in this regard, then I'm going to make for certain that I'm doing this as the right choice.
Sure.
I'm not going to go back and forth kind of a deal. And so I spent a lot of time with that, seeing if it works. And it was through studies of apologetics, studies of other religions, studies of making truth claims and worldviews and all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to figure it out before you jumped in, right?
Yeah. But God did, God did the work, but it was like the transformation and this renewal, and it was within me. But I was like, I'm going to really get my fingers into this thing to make sure that the decision I'm making is a lifelong decision.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so then another question you asked was, do you guys need all the details figured out? Well, there you go. There, I just answered my own.
I know where you're at.
Yeah. Or figuring things out as you go.
Right. Kind of fly the plane while we're building it.
Yeah.
Sort of an idea.
Exactly. Our congregation was half and half with that one.
Half and half. Yeah. I'm a get there fast, take it slow, early adopter. I need a lot of the plans, but we'll figure the details out as we go.
Yeah. For me, like I said, with the whole religion portion, it was a total I have everything figured out, at least as much as I could fathom at that point. I'm still, obviously, will always be figuring things out as I go. However, in regards to perhaps music or performance, I'm a very much fly by the seat of my pants kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, I remember I had a effectiveness profile done on me a while ago, and that's where are you effective? And they said the tester I had to do, face to face. He said the report came back that I like about 80% of the details complete. But I like to keep 20% of it, so that I got some movement. I don't want to do the 100%. I don't want to have no details, but I want to have a good chunk of them. So yeah.
Well, awesome. So if you guys out there want to kind of play along with this, I'd love to see what your responses are too for the listeners out there. Feel free to write in. So your last question was, does change excite you or freak you out? Yeah. And for our congregation, change excites them.
Good. Yeah. Well, the next few months will be awesome for them.
They're great at saying that. Right?
I think people like change as long as they know what the change is. Yeah. I think people, when it's change that they don't know or they can't grasp what the other side of that is going to be, I think that's where it freaks them out. But yeah, good. I'm glad they like change, because ready or not, here it comes.
Right, for sure. There's an interesting phrase that I've heard about change and what that does. So there's always pain associated with change, because whenever there is change happening, there is a loss of something. Right? Something is lost, something is then gained. Change is happening. Right. However, there's always pain associated with loss. So in other words, you're always going to be unsettled or feeling some kind of a pain or a hardship or a challenge when things are changing.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard something very similar, but I heard it this way. Change will not happen until the promise of the new outweighs the pain of the old.
Yes, right. It has to be worth more than what the pain is to endure it.
The promise of the pain has to outweigh, or the promise of what's to come has to weigh greater, has to have more weight than the pain of what is gone, what is lost.
That's unfortunate, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Otherwise, hey, if that's, and that's what a lot of people say. Well, what's in it for me? Like what's the outcome? Like, I'm going to go through all this pain, but what is the promise of that? Well, all right. Well, the promise is, not a whole lot different. Well, then I'll just stay here. Why do all the work?
Exactly. Yeah. What I meant unfortunate is that people will wait so long so that it's just a little bit less painful to make the change.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's hard reality of real life right there. But so this whole Sunday though was about, like we've been saying, moving and changes and preferences on things, and it's interesting. Well, it was a field trip Sunday.
Right.
We had the chance to do our own little Jericho mission as we went to our new temporary space, which is a building that's about 12-ish minutes away from our current well building right now.
Depending on how fast you drive.
Exactly. Yep. I go over the trees and then land in the parking lot. So, yep. For me, 10 minutes, but no. So it was kind of neat though, because we had the chance at the beginning of the service where you were able to give a little more of the DNA of the church, how we got to where we are today. And then because of that, why we're feeling led or why we are being led somewhere else.
Right.
And I want to talk about this in two different ways. One is because, well, this coming Sunday is something called a Connection Sunday.
Okay.
Which is a great way for any of those out there who are looking to be involved with the team. That's a way to get connected on any team that's here, how to be involved with service or utilizing your skill sets, whatever. The next Sunday, though, is a welcome event Sunday. That's the one that I would like to talk about as well with this whole concept here, because our welcome Sunday is really to get more of that DNA of the church.
Right.
Yeah. How did we get where we are? It's pretty much what we're just talking about right now. What are some of the roots and the foundations of our church? What makes us tick, and what are our desires? Where's our future looking, and all that sort of stuff. So I've been here for about 3 years within this church, and yeah, that's a long time to be some places. However, this church has been here in this building for 10 years and previously had other extensions of itself.
Sure.
So could you give us maybe just a little bit of insight into, well, why was the well started and how we are where we are?
Well, the concept of the well was started way back in the 90s. So I was a student ministry pastor at a church, and this whole concept of post-modernity was starting to be outlined. What does Christianity in a postmodern, post-Christian world look like? And we were seeing that a lot in our students. So we started brainstorming and praying through what might a church look like in a post-Christian world. D.A. Carson, one of my favorite theologians, he said this: when he first started in academia, you would ask somebody about God, and in this country, everybody just knew you were talking about the Judeo-Christian God of the Bible. He said, nowadays, this is in the 90s, he says, nowadays, when you say something about God, they'll ask you, well, which one?
Yeah.
And he said, so that's a drift in culture. And so it's no longer the idea that you're going to go out and you talk about God and the person you're talking to resonates with who you're talking about. They might ask that question, well, who's God? Also, the Judeo-Christian values used to drive a lot of our cultural morality. And you're seeing now that those values are getting kind of pushed to the fringe. There is a battle right now. I know there's some reestablishing and of those values in pockets, but you're seeing those pushed to the fringe. So where this country might have been called a Christian-esque country, at least friendly to that we were seeing it drift away. So how do we do church differently? We started asking that question, and what came of it is our attempt is what's called the well. Actually, it came about end of the 2000s, and it is an attempt to try to make what God says in Scripture relevant and applicable to the culture around us. Not that we're changing the message, but we're helping to help people see the message in a way that is the truth rings true to them. And so we try to do a bunch of different things. And so, yeah, the well was planted out of a church called Cornerstone EPC. It was a Presbyterian church. It was planted out of that for the sole purpose of reaching people that would never step foot into a traditional church. Maybe they've been hurt by a church. Maybe they have a skewed idea of what church looks like. We changed up the liturgy quite a bit, and we've adopted our own. So that was why the well was formed. And so, yeah, it was formed in 2010. We went on our own, and we were in a rental space down the street, actually, and we looked at it and went, we're paying all this money for rent. We need to buy a space. And we tried to buy land and build a building, but that was a little bit too big of a bite to take off. So a family that I had got to know, the Damavalides family. They are a pretty big real estate commercial space investor group. They had this building, and they wanted to help us. And I remember Bill, his actual Greek name is Vasilios, but they call him Bill. He wanted to help us, and so they made us, to quote the Godfather, he made us an offer we couldn't refuse, and we were able to buy this building. All the while knowing that this building was temporary because God had laid on our heart that we wanted to have a space that we could do church in a way that is perhaps more applicable or more resonating with the post-Christian, postmodern culture that's seeping in. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it does to me. I've been, been involved very heavily within that for 3 years or so far. But if anybody out there as well would like more detail in that, as well as just if you have other questions, well, come to our welcome event.
Good plug. Absolutely.
That's
we
really
could have
what it's
some live dialogue right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so as well as receiving that DNA, the infrastructure, what makes this the heart of this church tick and beat, you also have the chance to meet the different ministry heads and speak with us and kind of get a little rundown about what we're up to these days as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. So I like that. Reaching people, making it applicable, changing up some of the traditional practices of a church. And one of those things that I really love about what we do is our reflection time.
Yeah.
Yeah. A way to literally respond back to the message that we've received. Why did you put that into the service?
Well, I had been in ministry for a couple decades at that time and grew up in the church. And what always struck me was we would sit there and listen to the sermon, and then there would be maybe a song at the end, right? And I had a lot of music directors, and if the pastor went over, then they're lopping verses off of the hymn, right? We're just going to do verses 1 and 3 instead of doing the whole hymn because we got to get out, right?
Yeah. Or they start playing over you.
Right. And one of the big questions or one of the big concerns that people had in culture regarding Christians in church is there's a lot of hypocrites because they go to church and they're one way on Sunday and then the rest of the week they're another way. And so the other question that was being asked from the culture was, or statement, don't tell me that it's true, show me it works.
Yeah.
So you have to have people that this is their authentic journey. And so I just felt, I remember growing up, we'd go to church and then we'd come home and you couldn't remember what the sermon was. You don't even remember what it was about. I remember then taking my kids, driving home, saying, all right, kids, what did you learn in Sunday school today? God, Jesus, Bible, Holy Spirit. I mean, that's literally what so they didn't know. So I felt like people were coming to church. They were listening to the sermon. They were going through these, but we rushed through it so quickly that by the time they got to the parking lot, they couldn't even articulate what they just heard. Yeah. So this was an effort, be still, know I am God. Elijah, God shows up in the whisper, in the still small voice, Jesus going away to pray and to hear from the Lord. If those are things that we want people to do and make part of their life, maybe, just maybe, we should model that in our worship. That, hey, here we've got into the word, so we wanted to make the word relevant and understandable and accessible for everybody, so it's not just a pastor thing or professional thing. Then once we do that, let it rest, give people time to say, okay, how does this apply to me? What might God be saying to me as a result of this? Yeah. So that it gives a little bit of time for them to go, all right, now what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's great on multiple fronts. One is because it works as a great segue to the next points I wanted to make. But it's funny that you use the words or that phrase, because I hear this all the time as well. I'm not going to go to church because there's too many hypocrites there. Now, one response would be, well, we have room for one more, right?
For
Please
sure.
Come on.
Yeah.
You're one too. But so here's the thing that's funny about that, right? Saying that you choose or won't go to church because you think there's too many hypocrites there is literally like the same as saying, I can't go to the gym because there's too many overweight people there.
Right.
What are you doing? That's the purpose of going there, right? Every
Right.
single person within the church, if they're humble and honest enough to admit it, will say, look, I am also a fallen person, the same way in a marriage is two imperfect people trying to make this thing work. And so Jesus himself, look, I'm the physician. I'm here to be treating the unhealthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The healthy don't need a doctor.
Exactly. And so we're all on our way, hopefully, to sanctification and to a closer Christ-likeness and so on. But guess what, guys? The church is filled with hypocrites, and we're all just doing the best we can.
If we're honest, if human beings are absolutely honest, every human is a hypocrite.
Yes.
Because they have things that they hold on to as this is a value, and then they have things that they do that go directly against that value.
Yep.
Not because they want to, but because that's just how we operate. And once we're honest about it, then we can start to close that gap. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I hear it all the time, the people on TV that don't claim Christianity, they'll say one thing and do another. And I'm like, so you're a hypocrite too. So why don't you just come join the club?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. The gym is filled with hypocrites, people that say, I want to get fit, and then they eat cheeseburgers. Well, that's kind of hypocritical. The school is filled with hypocrites and so on and so forth. I want to come to school to learn, and then you spend all your time playing video games and watching TV.
So I can't have cheeseburgers.
Right. Yeah. So the cool thing about that, though, is that you don't need to go somewhere or do something or change something in order for God to speak to you or in order for God to move you.
Right.
Because God will meet you right where you are.
Right. Hey, that's a great segue. Good job.
Yeah. Thanks.
Right. That was our first under the unsettled part of this is that God meets Abram in Genesis 11 in Haran where they had settled. He meets Abram right where he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll let you continue.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, then fine. So,
I preached a lot on Sunday, so.
Right. So, yes, exactly. God is saying to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house. So this is all the things that he's comfortable with, all the things that he's ever really known, right? This is his people where he has stability. And guess what? When you do this, though, he doesn't exactly tell him where he's going to be going.
Right.
But he's like, I will make you a great nation. I will bless your name, and your name will be great, and you will be a blessing.
Yeah. The promise of what is to come outweighed the pain of what he was leaving.
Yeah, he didn't even know it at the time, but yeah, that is wild. And so it is very easy to get comfortable, to say that I have a stable situation where I am, and then, well, there's a funny thing about that. What is stagnant water? It breeds death, really.
Right.
Stagnant. And so when things are stagnant, you're not moving, you're slowly dying. Mm-hmm. Not good, right? And so, I love how the way that God works and the way that He ordained nature to function. It's always kind of the same,
right? He meets us where we are,
yes,
but He never intends for us to stay there. I love when people say, "Well, God accepts you just the way you are." That's half true. Mm-hmm. He does accept you the way you are, but He never intends for you to stay that way.
Right.
And Abram here, God meets him where he is, and He says, but I'm going to move you. I'm going to move you to the life that I have designed for you, a life that is abundant, right? You're going to be a nation. You're going to have all these offspring. You're going to have all this land. It's going to be abundant, but you can't stay where you are. So people, this works spiritually, it works emotionally, it works physically. God will meet you where you are, loves you for exactly who you are, but He never intends for you to just stay there.
Yeah. In fact, the name of the Israelites are sojourners,
right?
Travelers, nomads.
Yeah, that's what the word Hebrew is.
There you go. Yeah,
right.
That's what I was getting at. Thank you. Yeah, for that. Incredible how that all works. I do want to have a point here to say, though, that God does desire for us, even though I'm saying you don't need to go somewhere for God, you do need to seek and pursue and persist. Ask and knock and seek. Yeah,
I think our next thing was that God's promises are unsettling, but they also require action.
Yeah.
Right. So fun conversation for another day. We were having a little bit earlier, like, did Abram have the choice to not do this? Could he have said to God, nah, I like my house, I like my wife, I like my family, I'm good?
Yeah.
Like, did he have that choice? Well, depends on what side of the spectrum you're on, depends on how wide that is. I'm not here to debate that right now. But in order for Abram to begin to experience the promise, the effects of the promise that God had for him, he had to move. He had to get into action. He couldn't just go say, okay, make me a great nation first, give me this first, do all this first, then I'll move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like that phrase of God often doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to throw you a softball, and I hope that you can hit it real quick. But in discussing how God requires us to move and his promises require action on our part, and God is about moving, can you give us Hebrews 6:1?
Oh, thanks for the softball. Yes, let us leave the elementary teachings of Christ behind and be moved to maturity.
Yeah. Why is that so important for our church?
I think it's everything that we've talked about. Look, the elementary teachings of Christ would be the basic understanding of the gospel, that God created the world, created humanity, breathed the breath of life into humanity, and is the author and sustainer of life. Humanity has chosen sin, or has allowed sin to enter in through the Genesis 3 original sin, Adam and Eve at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That brought death. The wages of sin is death. The gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. So Jesus then comes, takes on that death so that we could experience life. That is the base line of Christianity.
The elementary teaching.
Right. However, living that out and living in that reality, what it means to be a saved, ransomed, purchased child of our Father God, that is a lifelong pursuit. Maturity, I believe it's defined. Jesus in John 15 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you can bear no fruit. Yeah. I often ask the question, well, what is the fruit that we're trying to bear? Well, Paul then says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. So the question is, how are those things, those qualities, showing up in my life? Do I love people? Do I bring peace to my relationships in the world around me? Am I mostly joyful? Am I experiencing joy? Am I working in sorrow? Patience. How patient am I? How faithful am I with people and with the Lord and with how self-controlled am I? I mean, is something controlling me, or do I have control? That's a great way for us to ask, well, what fruit am I bearing?
Yeah, that's so good. I've recently heard, I love all these little phrases and models because it kind of helps me when certain things happen to, I guess, keep all these pieces together. But here's another interesting one. It's like, when you squeeze an orange, you expect orange juice to come out.
Right.
It would be weird if you squeezed an orange and some other thing came out of it.
Right.
So why is it not so weird that when you squeeze a Christian, something other than Christ comes out of it? Right. What fruit are you bearing?
Right. Yeah. You want to bear Christ-like fruit, you gotta be able to evaluate, am I doing it? And one of the things we talk about is that Scripture operates as a picture mirror window. It gives us the ideal. Ideally, I would express all the attributes of that fruit of the Spirit, right? There's one fruit, by the way, that has 9 attributes. That's another conversation.
Okay.
Those are not 9 different fruits.
Okay.
That's one fruit with like an apple is crunchy, it's sweet, it's juicy. Those are attributes of the same fruit, because Paul says the fruit, singular, of the Spirit. But anyway, that's another conversation. But as we're going through and we're bearing that fruit, it gives us the picture of what should be. Then it allows us to give a mirror of, all right, let me reflect on that. Let me see, how do I measure up to that standard? And then it gives us a window. Where do I need to go? Where is it that God is moving me to be more expressive of his fruit.
Yes. Very good. So in order for that to take place, it requires action on our part. And what you mentioned on Sunday is that when there is a promise being made, then what we're saying is we're hearing this promise being made. And the funny thing with their language, I believe this would be Hebrew then, is to hear them. Even in the Shema, hear, O Lord, right? In that word hearing are two different aspects or parts of listening and obeying, or having faith and obedience.
Right. Yeah. If I hear God and he says, go, and I don't go, well, then I don't believe him.
Right. And you're not being obedient.
And I don't hear him. I go, I hear you, but I'm not listening. Right?
Yeah. My son does that a lot to me. Right.
I think we all do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, put on don't you hear me? Right, exactly. Get these shoes, whatever. Yeah, right. That's so fun. But
1, 2, oh.
Yeah, no, that it works too. And they don't ever hear one, but they hear when 2 comes. And
they hear.
Right, exactly. Okay, I'm going to do it.
What if you just started with 3?
Sometimes I do. And
3.
Yeah. Yep. Guess what? That's a timeout. And you know what? Then they start to hear you on 1 a little more. Yeah. But that's actually applicable for how God sometimes will work with us too. Sometimes it's straight to 3, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you talked about when you squeeze an orange juice should come out. When you squeeze a Christian, Christ should come out.
Yeah.
That just reminds me when James says, count it pure joy when you experience trials of all kinds. What God is doing is revealing to us areas that when we're squeezed, Christ doesn't come out, and an area in need of maturation.
Love it. Woo, that was good. Wow. Well, guess what? The good news is we can hear that one again. Just rewind 15 seconds and catch that. That was really good. But let's wrap up this particular episode. Episode 35 has been a fun one, and we're looking forward to this next week. It'll be September 14th, which once again will be our Connection Event Sunday. So find a way to get involved with some of our ministry in this church. Right. Find a way to be moved yourself and all of our interesting, cool workshops that are coming up, right. Things along that nature. This next Sunday's sermon is titled That Promise Has Ramifications. Yeah. So,
we'll continue to look at how Abram lives into the promise God gave him.
Yeah. It'll be a lot of fun. So we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks once again for tuning in for another Overflow podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Have a great day.